Miami International Airport just set a record. Over 200,000 passengers in a single day. 56 million in 2024. 55 million again in 2025. The second busiest international gateway in the United States. And here's the problem. The terminal system handling all of this was last expanded in 2007. One airline controls 56% of every flight. The low-cost carrier that kept fares in check just collapsed into its second bankruptcy. And in a few weeks, the FIFA World Cup is about to dump millions of international visitors into an airport already running beyond design capacity. Everything that could pressure an airport is about to hit Miami at the same time. To understand Miami Airport, you have to understand one number: 56%. That's American Airlines' share of all passengers at MIA. Not flights, passengers. More than half of every human being who walks through that terminal is flying American. American declared Miami a hub in 1988 when Eastern Airlines was collapsing. Robert Crandall, American's CEO at the time, studied the map and recognized that Delta would crush any competitor trying to build a hub at Atlanta. But Miami had something Atlanta didn't: geography. Sitting at the southern tip of the United States, closer to Bogota than to Chicago, Miami is the natural gateway between North America and everything south of it: Mexico, the Caribbean, Central America, South America. American moved in while Eastern was dying and never left. Today, American flies to nearly 70 destinations in Latin America and the Caribbean from Miami alone: Havana, Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, Lima, Bogota, Santiago. The list reads like an atlas of the Western Hemisphere. No other U.S. carrier comes close to matching that Latin American network from a single airport. Delta sits at roughly 11% market share at MIA. Everyone else fights over scraps. This dominance creates a specific problem. When one airline controls over half the airport's traffic, every operational decision that airline makes ripples through the entire system. American's schedule peaks, those waves of departures between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., again between noon and 2 p.m., and again from 5 and 8 p.m., define the congestion pattern for the whole airport. Security lines, customs queues, gate availability, taxi lanes, baggage systems, they all spike and crash on American's rhythm, not the airport's. And right now, American is investing $1.1 billion to expand its footprint even further. The new Concourse D expansion will convert 17 ground-level regional jet gates into full-size contact gates for narrow-body and larger aircraft. Every one of those gates will be exclusively American Airlines. The airline isn't just dominant at Miami, it's building permanent infrastructure to become more dominant.
Miami's terminal layout was designed for a different era. The airport operates a single terminal building with 3 sections: North, Central, and South, connected by concourses D through K. It's a linear horseshoe shape that forces all passenger movements through narrow connector corridors and a limited number of security checkpoints. The North Terminal, Concourse D, is American's fortress. It handles roughly 35 million passengers a year, 63% of the airport's total volume, through a single concourse. 35 million people through one concourse. For context, that's more annual passengers than the entirety of Baltimore-Washington International or Tampa International Airport handles across their entire facilities. The Central Terminal, Concourses E, F, and G, processes about 12 million passengers. This is where most international carriers operate: Latin American airlines, European carriers, Middle Eastern airlines. The South Terminal, Concourses H, J, and the upcoming K, handles another 9 million. The imbalance is the problem. The North Terminal is structurally overloaded. It's handling roughly 3 times the passenger volume of the South Terminal, with a facility that hasn't seen a major expansion in nearly 2 decades. The corridors connecting concourses were built for 30 million annual passengers. The airport is processing 56 million. Walk through Concourse D at 7 a.m. on a weekday and you'll see it. Bodies stacked at gates, lines snaking through food courts, passengers sitting on floors because there aren't enough seats. The Customs and Border Protection Facility compounds the issue. Miami processes the second highest number of international arrivals in the country after JFK. But unlike JFK, which distributes international traffic across multiple terminals, Miami funnels the majority through a centralized CBP facility. During peak arrival waves, typically mid-afternoon when transatlantic and South American flights cluster, the wait times can exceed 90 minutes. That's not an inconvenience, that's a system failure. The airport knows this. That's why the $9 billion Modernization in Action Plan exists. A new $600 million Concourse K adding 6 gates, the $1 billion Concourse D expansion adding 17 gates, a $745 million Central Terminal redevelopment, over 200 individual projects across the complex. The goal is to push capacity to 77 million passengers by 2040, but Concourse D won't break ground until 2027. Concourse K won't open until 2029. The construction will happen while the airport continues operating at full capacity, which means the next 3 to 4 years will be the worst. Now, remove the one pressure valve that kept the system affordable. Spirit Airlines was headquartered in Miramar, Florida, 20 minutes from Miami International and 10 minutes from Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International. Fort Lauderdale was Spirit's primary base, but Spirit's presence in the broader South Florida market had a direct effect on Miami's economics. When Spirit offered $29 base fares from Fort Lauderdale to Chicago or New York, it forced every carrier at both MIA and Fort Lauderdale to compete on price for price-sensitive travelers. Budget passengers had an option: fly Spirit from Fort Lauderdale cheap or pay more at Miami.
That option no longer exists. Spirit filed for its second Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2025. The airline is shrinking from 214 aircraft to under 76. It furloughed 1,800 flight attendants, a third of its entire cabin crew. Over 300 furloughs hit Fort Lauderdale alone. The airline lost roughly $3 million a day through late 2025 and early 2026. Cancellation rates spiked. On some days, Spirit accounted for 93% of all cancellations at Fort Lauderdale. Service to at least 13 cities was eliminated entirely. The downstream effect on Miami is direct and measurable. With Spirit gutted, the low-fare anchor in South Florida is gone. Fares on routes where Spirit once set the pricing floor have risen 21% on average across competing carriers. The $29 base fare that Spirit pioneered has no structural equivalent in the current market. Frontier has moved fastest, launching 22 new routes in early 2025, targeting former Spirit markets. JetBlue is expanding at Fort Lauderdale, but neither operates at the volume or price point Spirit once held. For Miami specifically, this means more passengers at higher fares with fewer alternatives. Travelers who once chose Fort Lauderdale for Spirit's low fares are now considering Miami instead, particularly for international connections that Fort Lauderdale can't match. That's additional volume flowing into a terminal system that's already past capacity. Most people think of Miami Airport as a passenger facility. It's not. Miami is the busiest international freight airport in the United States and 6th busiest globally. In 2025, nearly 3.5 million tons of cargo passed through MIA, the 6th consecutive year of record cargo volumes, up 13.6% year-over-year. This matters because cargo operations compete with passenger operations for the same infrastructure: runway time, apron space, ground handling resources, air traffic control slots. Every freighter that lands at Miami takes up the same runway capacity as a passenger A321. Every cargo handling facility occupies ramp space that could otherwise serve passenger aircraft. Miami's cargo dominance is driven by Latin American trade, flowers from Colombia, pharmaceuticals from across the hemisphere, perishable goods moving north, and manufactured goods moving south. This freight generates enormous economic value. The airport claims $118 billion in annual economic activity for Miami-Dade County, but it creates a structural tension. The airport can't simply add more passenger gates without considering the cargo infrastructure that shares the same airfield. The AI supply chain has added another layer. Semiconductor components, server hardware, and networking equipment moving between Asia, Latin America, and the US now transit through Miami in growing volumes. The cargo operation isn't shrinking, it's accelerating, and it occupies infrastructure capacity that the passenger side desperately needs. Into all of this, the terminal at capacity, the construction underway, the low-cost vacuum, the cargo competition, dropped the biggest single sporting event on Earth.
The 2026 FIFA World Cup will host 7 matches at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, roughly 17 miles from Miami International Airport. Games are scheduled between June and July 2026, spanning group stage through knockout rounds. Miami will receive teams and fans from across the globe for nearly a month of matches. The airport already handles over 200,000 passengers on peak days. World Cup match days will push demand well beyond that. International arrivals will spike as fans fly in from South America, Central America, Europe, and beyond. Exactly the markets Miami already serves at maximum capacity through its strained CBP facility. The customs processing bottleneck that already causes 90-minute waits during normal peak periods will face an entirely new tier of demand. And the ground transportation system connecting the airport to the stadium area is already Miami's weakest link. The city's residents already spend an average of 70 hours per year stuck in traffic. Previous major events at Hard Rock Stadium, Formula One races, Super Bowls, have created gridlock extending for miles. The World Cup will repeat this pattern across 7 separate match days, with international arrivals and departures layered on top of normal airport operations. The airport has the MIA Mover, an automated people mover connecting the terminal to the Miami Intermodal Center, but that system was built for regular daily traffic, not for surges of 60,000 soccer fans arriving within a few hours. Public transit options between the airport and Miami Gardens are limited. Most fans will depend on ride shares, rental cars, and shuttle buses, all of which will compete with regular airport traffic on roads that already fail during normal rush hours. The modernization plan is real, and it's the largest capital investment in Miami Airport's history, $9 billion across more than 200 projects over the next decade. The numbers are impressive. Concourse K, 6 new gates, $600 million, opening 2029. Concourse D expansion, 17 new gates, $1 billion, breaking ground 2027. Central Terminal redevelopment, $745 million. Even the bathrooms, all 194 of them, are being renovated in a phased program running through 2031. The problem isn't the plan. The problem is the timing. None of the major capacity expansions will be operational before 2029 at the earliest. The Concourse D expansion won't break ground until 2027 and won't be complete for years after that. Concourse K is targeting spring 2029. The Central Terminal redevelopment extends beyond that. For the next 3 to 4 years, Miami will be simultaneously operating at record passenger volumes and executing the largest construction program in its history. Every traveler who's flown through an airport during a major renovation knows what that means. Temporary walls narrowing corridors, detoured walking paths adding hundreds of feet to connections, closed gates reducing available departure positions, construction noise, dust, and reduced retail options. All of this while processing 55 million passengers per year.
The airport's own target, 77 million passengers by 2040, reveals the scale of the gap. MIA is currently at 55 to 56 million with infrastructure designed for far less. The expansion plan adds roughly 40% more capacity over 15 years. But demand isn't waiting 15 years. It's here now. Miami Airport has a problem that no other American hub faces in quite the same combination. A single airline controlling 56% of traffic with no meaningful competitive counterweight. A terminal last expanded in 2007, now processing double its design capacity. The collapse of the one low-cost carrier that kept South Florida fares affordable. A cargo operation that's the busiest international freight hub in the country competing for the same runways. A $9 billion construction program that won't deliver capacity relief for years. And the FIFA World Cup arriving this summer into an airport that already buckles on busy weekends. Any one of these pressures would stress a major hub. Miami is absorbing all of them simultaneously. The airport isn't failing. By every metric, cargo records, passenger satisfaction awards, airline investment, it's succeeding. But success at this scale, with this infrastructure, at this moment, is exactly what creates chaos. Miami Airport isn't about to become America's most chaotic hub because something went wrong. It's about to become chaotic because everything went right, all at once, faster than the concrete could follow.